this is an extraordinary story, and it just like we're at. I mean, we've been on the brink, and it's sort of like ebbs and flows, but it is extraordinary on a day where it was revealed, or last night, about this sort of Alito and his getting a he has his own personal billionaire as opposed to Clarence Thomas's personal billionaire. And I just, whenever I read a story about these super PACs, I just remember, Anthony Kennedy saying like, well, disclosure and we don't have to worry, money and speech are the same thing, that type of thing. We're in this story you do about DeSantis has basically moved the degradation of our campaign finance laws to another level. Like this is a milestone in the sort of, I guess, revealing of just how decrepit our campaign finance laws are. Will you just explain what he's set up and what he's doing that is so sort of like novel?
Yeah. It's pretty astounding because I think if it works, and it may not work because, you've seen his polling numbers and he's not running away with it, but he basically is like setting out a new blueprint for big money to buy off a presidential election. I mean, it's pretty astounding. So he has the super PAC, which is Never Back Down. The super PAC, I think, on a basic level, is just illegally funded. So can
we just stop for a moment and just go like, really, like Never Back Down? I mean,
yeah. Well, so it's funded. So it's funded with $82.5 million. The thing that's interesting about this is that it's almost certainly illegal by the letter of campaign finance law. So he raised $200 million in Florida while he was running for governor via his Empower Parents super PAC. But obviously didn't need to spend all that to win the governor's race in Florida. So he had $83 million still sitting there. And by the letter of the law, are not allowed to move money that was raised in a state race for a state race into a federal race. DeSantis, they just took the $82 million from Empower Parents PAC that was for statewide Florida race, moved it right into this federal race, into this federal PAC of Never Back Down. And basically it was like, we don't think the FEC is going to do anything. And if they do, it'll be too late. And so they are starting with this $82.5 million head start. And rather than, DeSantis building out a campaign with volunteers and like door knocking, the stuff that, is kind of like the fiber of American democracy and campaigning. I mean, we don't need to make it overly romantic, but that's kind of like a core function at the very least. They're having the super PAC run the entire ground game for DeSantis in 4 separate states right now. So they're spending $100 million to hire professional door knockers and run the entire quote unquote grassroots operation independently. So the super PAC is not allowed to collaborate with this DeSantis campaign. Technically, that's, again, the law as decided by the Supreme Court was that this is okay because super PACs don't collaborate with campaigns. And they're just letting their super PAC, which is, again, funded not in a legal way, do all the essential functions of the campaign. And they're just going to sit back and basically like let the super PAC run the show.
It's almost as if the super PAC is the campaign. And so you can't collaborate with a separate entity that doesn't exist because they're doing all of the functions of the campaign. Right.
And it's like, you might say like, oh, well, that doesn't sound that crazy. It's a pretty crazy workaround because you're technically I keep saying this, but technically by the FEC regulations that exist, they should have only been able to transfer $5,000 from Empower Parents PAC into the DeSantis campaign. Instead, they moved $82.5 million. So basically what they're saying is there is no campaign finance law. We will raise infinite money from whoever we want to, and we will put it to doing whatever basic campaign function we decide we need to do. And in the case of DeSantis, because he has so little grassroots support, it's like, all right, we're going to astroturf a massive, just incredible ground game. And that's what they're doing. But it's pretty astounding. Like, we've never seen anything like this.
And surely the FEC is going to crack down on this, right?
Well, the funny thing is that, yeah, the way they got this idea was from another Florida politician, Byron Donalds, who is a Freedom Caucus stalwart. And he did the same thing, albeit with a much smaller amount of money when he left the Florida State House and decided to run for Congress. He moved 107 grand out of his state level PAC into his congressional race. Pretty clearly not allowed to do it, but the FEC has 3 Republican chairs and 3 Democrats. And of course, when it came time to decide on the legality of this, they deadlocked, and the Republicans said it was fine, and the Democrats said it was not fine, which does not mean that it's legal. It just means that they are, gridlocked and toothless. And that's the DeSantis campaign basically identified as a green light. They said, if Donalds can do it, we can do it too. So then they decided to do it by a factor of 800x. So
is there no other entity that can enforce campaign finance laws? I mean, I understand that we have an agency ostensibly set up to do that, but it has been designed in such a way that it really doesn't take any enforcement action, or can't take any enforcement action unless it's probably to protect an incumbent or something to that effect. But is there no other entity? Can the DOJ can't say, like, there's some clear law breaking happening over here, or did it just, like, do you have to come from this special, police entity called the Federal Elections Commission to deal with it?
I think that there is the Southern District of New York, that at least that court has been pretty effective on campaign finance stuff in the past. Like the George Santos hot water, I think, is coming from there. When Sam Bankman-Fried went down, it was there, and part of that indictment was based on campaign finance law. So it's not like impossible that there may be some consequence for this. And like DeSantis doesn't get away with breaking the rules in the same way that Trump does, right? Like DeSantis would like to be Trump, and he's not Trump in a lot of ways. And one of the ways he's not Trump is like his panache with rule breaking. So it is possible. The problem is, like, either if this works and DeSantis is president, well, then there are going to be no consequences because he will just, pardon himself or whatever. He will ensure that there will be no consequences. There might not even be a Department of Justice by the time he's done, given what he said on the campaign trail. So, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, there might be some, maybe there's something down the road. But it'll take a while at the very least.